Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Technical Tim here, and I want to thank everyone so much who's been liking all my videos and subscribing to the channel. And I'd really appreciate if you gave this video a thumbs up or subscribe if you haven't already. And I'm actually live for my first time. Let's make sure. I think this is working. Cool. Yeah, I think we're good. Cool. Okay. So I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna tweet out that I'm live right now, actually, just so you guys all know. Sorry, guys. It's gonna be just a few kinks here because it's the first time I've ever done this. So just give me a little bit of time, real quick. What's up, Warrior Bet? How's it going, man? Cool. So I think we're going. I'm not gonna tweet anything out because I just want to I don't know how this is gonna go. I think it should be okay, and I think I have everything set up, but I'm going to just kind of, this is gonna be like a bit of a test run. So let's just talk about the card coming up. I've researched it further, and I'm just gonna go through each fight real quick on Tapology here, and yeah, let's do it. So the first fight of the night is Landwehr and Herbert Burns. So essentially, I went through. I ended up taping this fight. Whenever I did the podcast with Gugabe, I didn't really know what to think of it because I had only watched like a fight or two of Landwehr, and I mean, I think everyone can pretty much agree that. I mean, if Burns gets a back take or something, there could be issues. But if Landwehr just kind of really survives the first 6 minutes, he'll probably really pour it on Herbert Burns, and that's kind of what I saw. And I do think Burns is capable of taking him down. I didn't like all the kind of a lot of the takedown defense that I saw from Landwehr. But one thing that I noticed is he's pretty good at not giving up his back at times. So essentially, he'll use butterfly hooks and kind of fight hands and come back up. And he doesn't give up his back and then stand up, kind of the classical wrestler get up. So I do think that's good that he actually fights off his back and uses butterfly hooks. So I think that might minimize his submission. And if he can kind of just survive early, he can probably take over. But I decided not to play anything on it just because I just feel like it's a little bit of a mess, and I don't think Landwehr's gone against really the jiu-jitsu level that Burns kind of has. And I'm not saying Burns is like insane or anything on the mat, but I do feel like he's pretty tricky down there. So I kind of just want to I don't know. I just feel like it's a bit of a mess, but I kind of lean Landwehr there, to be honest. And then Brett Johns and Tony Gravely. I have a lot of people messaging me about this fight in general, and I think it's just going to be super competitive. I think the line is about right. I think they're about pretty close to even money right now, and Johns can wrestle a little bit. I tend to think Tony Gravely's a little better from a positional point of view, so I tend to think he'll probably get top time. If he'll probably win mostly the top time battle, but Johns is just a better submission grappler, so I'm kind of worried that Gravely might just get caught in something. And yeah, I tend to I just think it's a pretty close fight. And then I ended up looking into McMahon and Landsberg a lot more, and I actually do agree with a lot of people who kind of jumped on the early line of McMahon, but I definitely think she's going to get takedowns here for sure. I think she's going to have success, and we know she kind of falls apart a little bit, but kind of the red flags that I see for Landsberg is she doesn't have the best takedown defense whenever you kind of go below the waist, and I think McMahon, she can mix up takedowns. I've seen her go to the upper body. I've seen her do some nice single and double legs, and kind of like she can just mix it all up. She'll have like an over under up against the cage and hit a reap, kind of an inside trip. That's the main takedown that Henry Cejudo did against Demetrius Johnson, really to win that fight late. And I definitely think McMahon will get takedowns, but my issue with betting her, and I think she can hold top time too. So like I think she's going to win, but she's minus 160 now, which means I kind of have to cap her in the minus 200 range to think she's worth it. And the main thing I notice is she doesn't land a lot of strikes from top position. That's what really worried me. So if she doesn't put Landsberg away, it can really, like McMahon could have 3.5 minutes of top control, and if they get stood up or something, I could totally see Lena just landing a few strikes and making the rounds competitive. And if you watch Sarah McMahon versus Lauren Murphy, McMahon rode out position for almost 3 rounds, but it still ended up being scored a split decision because McMahon wasn't doing much from top position. And whenever they would end up kind of being back on the feet kind of later in the rounds, I feel like McMahon got a little tired. So I just see this fight, it could get weird if McMahon's not too active from top. She's good at, she can pass that classic tripod top game where she kind of passes your guard and then works an arm triangle. Like she can definitely do that, but she's kind of limited other than that on top, and she just doesn't land enough strikes on top position. So I'm just afraid that if they stand the fight up and then McMahon gets a little uncomfortable, I could see Landsberg kind of just landing some strikes and making shit interesting. And I still think McMahon is going to win the fight because I don't think Lena in her last 2 fights has faced people who, I feel like the last 2 fights she's had, who was it, Macy Chiasson and Evinger, I just feel like they're not as strong as takedown artists, especially Macy Chiasson, and she kind of just goes for the upper body takedown. So I feel like McMahon's probably going to win, but it's going to get interesting, and I can't play her at minus 160 no. Montel Jackson and Felipe Colares, I'm not going to say much about this fight. I tend to think Jackson, he's the rightful favorite, definitely. He is a way, way, way better striker, but I still think he kind of uses a lot of wrist control and basic wrestling fundamentals to defend takedowns and to escape back up. And as a huge dog for Colares, I do think it's possible he could get Jackson's back at some point. Like, I think it's a viable path to victory. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Jackson's really going to fuck him up. But Colares doesn't land strikes. He's not a good striker. And if he doesn't get some type of back take, he's probably fucked. So I don't really have much to say. Pudilova and Kish, I don't have much to say either. I think Pudilova should take that. Lentz and Arnold Allen, I taped it. Line might be a little too wide, but I do think Allen's going to win, and I think he's just kind of a better overall boxer. But Lentz still, Lentz just beat Scott Holtzman not too long ago, and he's got some tricks up his sleeve, but I feel like Allen's more consistent as a fight goes. He can be a little low volume, but I feel like Allen's defense is a lot better too. He doesn't get hit a lot. I think his stats are really good from a defensive perspective, but lines might be too wide, but I think Allen's going to win. Bevan Lewis, I think he's going to maul Townsend. I actually jumped on Lewis's early line, kind of at the lower, like real low minus 300s. I think I got him at like minus 305. I'm probably just going to ride it out, honestly. Townsend has to knock him out. He has no offensive wrestling. If he goes for if he gets put on his back too, he just can't get up. And even though Bevan Lewis doesn't really go for many takedowns, I could see them clinching up and Lewis maybe hurting him and getting on top, and he would probably ride out the round there or even finish him. So it's kind of I think it's just a mismatch. Townsend pretty much has to land a head kick. It can happen. This is MMA, but whatever. Jamal Hill and Stosic. I talked about this on the podcast. I think it's a stay away. A lot of people are going with Stosic. I like some of Hill's game. Like, I think he's a good long striker, and he's super offensive, and he's always landing. But his ground game did not look good on the regionals, so a Stosic takedown could really erase any work that Hill has throughout any round. So it's kind of a type of thing. Next fight. And so these next few fights, I have a lot more to say. I've kind of been going through this quick because this is where I actually placed some bets coming up. But Angela Hill and Hannah Cyphers, generally these aren't the type of fights that I really like to bet. I think women's striking fights, I think striking fights in general can be high variance. Just anyone could really knock anyone out, but not really so much in women's MMA. But it could just be who ends the round well. It can just get a little messy, where I feel like grapplers, usually the better grappler wins if it's kind of more grappling heavy of a fight. Where, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, Israel Adesanya almost lost to Kelvin Gastelum in a striking fight, and he's way better than Gastelum, but because, styles can be weird. What's up, guys? How's it going? I have a few chats. Hold on one second. Turn that off. Yeah, if you have any questions, also just kind of shoot them below. But I feel like Israel Adesanya, he's a guy, like, he lost a striking fight to Kelvin Gastelum, where if you looked at Damian Maia's never going to lose a grappling fight or kind of get submitted by a way lower, like a much lower level grappler. I guess that's kind of what I'm trying to say. So striking fights can get dicey sometimes. Just shit can happen in them. But I actually like Angela Hill here, and she's minus. I got her minus 165. I think that's what she still is, and I did go small because it still is a women's striking fight, and I do expect it overall to be pretty competitive. But Angela Hill she's landed 100 strikes, I think, in 5 of her last 6 fights that have gone 3 rounds, like right around there. It's something like that. But she's pretty much always hovering around that 100 significant strike number. And I'm going to talk about the styles in a minute, but I just want to talk about the numbers for a minute. And something about Angela Hill also that I really, I saw it on tape, and then I like to tape first and then go into the numbers, because I don't want the numbers to skew me. Because I feel like if I watch tape first, I'm not going to be skewed by anything, and I'm going to kind of come with a conclusion. And then I like to go see the numbers and kind of see if I see anything after that. Because when I go into the numbers, they're not going to be... they're objective. They just are what they are, but you still have to adjust and kind of know what to do and know when they're kind of like meaningless, because a lot of the time they are. I've actually talked to a few people. I think I even talked to Warrior Bet about this, that I'm pretty number dependent, and I feel like he's not as much. But I do think you kind of have to do a mix of both tape and numbers. That's kind of where I'm kind of in the middle ground. But what I saw from Hill is she's always landing the more strikes. So let's talk about the numbers first. And she's always winning the head strike battle. And I feel like in these women's striking fights, like, this is probably going to a decision. It's really going to be... Like, I just feel like the head strikes matter so much in a fight like this. Who's landing the more head strikes? Because the more you land, the more likely the other opponent's going to be wearing damage. And judges just tend to favor the person who's landing more head strikes. And that's actually in the data as well. Generally, people who win decisions are the ones who are landing the more head strikes. Sometimes you'll have fights that are weird, and like a leg kick can knock someone down and so that can be very impactful. But generally, head strikes are huge. And Angela Hill is a girl who she's always winning the head strike battle, and I think against Joe, like just I'll talk about Cyphers, how Cyphers doesn't land head strikes, and that's what I'm going to pivot off into next. But against Jody Escobar, I think she landed 83 head strikes, so she really just dominated Escobar in that regard. And then if you look at Hannah Cyphers, she's never come close to 100 significant strikes. I think she got outstruck by Polyana Viana on the feet by like 10 strikes, so she even got outstruck there. She got murdered by Barber. Barber's a little bit different, like a lot of her damage is done in the clinch. But then also her fight against Escobar, she only landed, I think it was 29 head strikes, and that's, that compares to Angela Hill's like 83 or something. And I just feel like Angela Hill has a better defense too. She defends strikes at 65% and Cyphers is at 53. And I feel like Hill is going to be landing more. And I think if you see it in the styles, and I think someone pointed out on here, I feel like Hill has better footwork. She comes in and out well. And I just feel like she's going to be hitting a lot more and Cyphers is going to be missing. What's some other stuff that I saw on there? I'll get to your guys' questions kind of at the end. But this is my first time, so this is probably fucking awful, but I'm like getting distracted by the questions. But I think like nah, fuck, sorry. I'm like dying on my voice now. But I feel like Cyphers, she just doesn't land head strikes, you know? Hold on, I had something else in my notes. My voice is coming back. Hold on one second. Yeah, but I feel like Cyphers, what was the other thing I saw? She also got outlanded on the head strikes to Polyana Viana, and that was like, what was it again? I think it was like 30 or 29-21. So I just feel like she's gonna lose the head strike battle here, and that's pretty much the way I see it. Both girls don't land a lot of takedowns, so it's kind of a thing where I feel like I could see a caught kick and someone riding out top position for a second, but that's pretty much it. I feel like Hill's just going to be the head strike winner here, and I cap her. She got opened up at like minus 220. And that's probably where I cap her. I think she could definitely lose the fight because it's still a women's striking fight. I feel like some exchanges will be competitive and shit happens in fights like this and judges are weird, but I feel like she wins this like 7 out of 10. The Espinosa and Perez fight, I think Perez is kind of around like minus 250, minus 260, and I tend to think it's right. I think the striking will actually be competitive at times. Espinosa kind of plays that kicking game. He kind of comes in. He's really like, he kind of flees with his feet, and then he'll come in and out. I feel like Perez has a better hands, but I feel like, hold on. Sorry, I feel like the striking is just going to be pretty competitive for the most part, but I feel like Perez does have the better hands. But the main thing is Perez is a dynamite wrestler, just defensively and offensively, and I think he lands a lot of takedowns. He lands over 3 per fight, and I feel like he's going to land some here. And you really haven't seen a lot of Espinosa's takedown defense in his UFC fights, but the only one I really saw was against, who was it against? Let's go into Espinosa. Give me a minute, boys. I'm blanking on who it was. It was a long time ago. It was just Rick Desculo, and I feel like whenever I was watching that fight, it was in 2014, so it was a long time ago, but I just feel like Espinosa had nothing off his back. And, sorry, I feel like he had nothing off his back, and I just feel like he's going to kind of get a bit dominated here. I know it's been a long time ago, but I just feel like Perez is a monster on the mat, and that's why I think the line's probably about right. But, what else did I see in this fight? I feel like Espinosa, when he does shoot in, Perez is really good at getting those front headlocks as well. So I tend to think Perez can actually have success there as well. But I think the line's probably about right. I just think Perez is a better grappler. I think the feet will be pretty competitive. I'm fine with him being a bit of a favorite here. RDA. RDA and Chiesa. Like, I think RDA is going to win. He's around like minus 250, minus 260, but it's one of those things where I feel like Chiesa has a path to victory. I don't think he can sub RDA. I doubt he knocks him out, so he's probably going to have to win a decision, but I could see him getting just some takedowns at times, but I still think RDA is going to win. He's a much better striker, way higher output, but I just feel like with the length of Chiesa, he can cause some issues. A lot of people are hitting RDA hard. I think he's going to win, but I just don't feel comfortable with it. And I feel like he did not look very good against Leon. I've always favored, if you follow me, I've always really liked Leon Edwards' wrestling game a lot, but even for just kind of like a British guy, I think he's a guy, Leon Edwards, if he started wrestling just kind of whenever he was 4 years old or whatever, he would have probably been a D1 national champion. But he still had much more success in the wrestling than I anticipated. I still thought he was going to get takedowns at times, but he really threw RDA around, and a lot of them were with kind of body lock type of TDs. And I feel like Chiesa could. I just feel like if RDA's declined, Chiesa could give him some issues. So it's another one I'm gonna stay away from. And then Blades and JDS. I think JDS is a little more live here than people think. It's weird because JDS, like, the only wrestler he's really ever gone against is Cain Velasquez, kind of back in the day. But Cain, if you remember, I think it was fight 2, Cain got knocked out in fight 1, and then in fight 2, Cain came really, really heavy with a lot of his takedowns. And I remember JDS was stopping them with ease, but then Cain pressured, and kind of clinched him up and just grinded on him really hard in a way that Blades doesn't really do, that tired JDS immediately, and then Cain completely dominated him. And that's kind of what happened in fight 3 too. And Curtis Blades tends to be one of those guys, he lands a shitload of takedowns, but he tends to be kind of like, he doesn't always chain stuff together. I mean, he's capable of doing it, but sometimes he'll just go for a straight double leg or something. And I feel like JDS might be able to stop that and kind of make things interesting. But if Blades obviously tires him out, then I'm sure the takedowns will come more. But I don't think he's going to take JDS down completely easily right away. And JDS, I think even against Cain, didn't allow a lot of passes. And sometimes Blades doesn't always pass on the mat too. So I feel like JDS will just have opportunities on the feet. He might show up looking old. Who knows? But it's kind of I think it's another one of those. It's kind of like, it's almost like the RDA fight. Like, I don't really know exactly how they're going to look coming in, and we haven't seen JDS kind of at this age defend takedowns really. So I don't really know where his takedown defense is at, and we really only have the sample against Cain, and those are kind of different styles of takedown. So it's weird, but so I don't have the best read on that one. But I could see JDS being a little liver than people really think. But yeah, that's kind of my main thoughts. Sorry, I was kind of stumbling through this. I'm having I think I was having some technical issues earlier, so it's my first time. I'll get better as I go. I'll do these usually on Friday before every card, but I'll see if anyone has any questions or anything. CBN9 Crate said Hill movement and footwork is light years in front of Cyphers. I tend to agree with that. I think Cyphers can compete a little bit, but I just feel like Hill's going to I think it's going to be competitive. Like, I expect the fight to be competitive at times, but I just feel like she's going to be the clear winner, though, even though it's competitive. And I just feel like she's going to get ahead on the head strikes. And I'm a stats guy. A lot of people don't like it, but stats have helped me before, so. What do you make of Jamal Hill? I'm not sold on him from what I've watched, and I've seen differing opinions out there. That's from Ryan. Yeah, like, I don't really know what to make of him. I feel like in that fight against, who was it? His Contender Series fight. I forget against who it was, but he landed, I think it was like, he landed a shitload of significant strikes. Like, he was averaging like 7 or 8, and that went, how long did that fight go? It went into the second round, I'm pretty sure. But it's one fight, and stats, you need to make adjustments on stats and know the guy he was fighting wasn't that great. He's not just going to be able to kind of barrel through UFC competition, you know? Yeah, against Alexander Popik. So, yeah, it went into the second round, but he was keeping up a high rate, which for light heavyweight, that's kind of rare. So that's a good sign, but I still saw some bad stuff on the mat in his regionals. So I tend to think he could just be kind of one of those binary fighters where maybe he can compete on the feet with some guys, but once he's on the mat, he could have some issues. But I need to see more of him. I guess it's kind of a small sample. Choi, MMA Casual, how long has this been going? I've just been going for probably like 30 minutes or so, this live chat. Does ACL, MCL, PCL reconstruction for Kish, is it going to affect her mobility during the fight? 4th surgery, right leg, it said. I didn't know that, so thanks for sharing that information. It's hard for me to, I'm not a doctor. It's really hard for me, just in general, with injuries and kind of things like that. It's hard for me to ever really know how much of an impact that's going to make into a fight. I never make something that doesn't happen in the cage or that... Hold on one second. My computer is dying. Give me 1 minute. Sorry, but I tend to just kind of... I kind of go for things that happen in the cage for the most part, or stats and kind of things like that, like weight cuts. I just don't know how to measure it. I don't have a really good way of measuring it, so I really never know. I guess if I'm torn on a fight and I think it's maybe 50-50 and there's kind of a negative thing like that, then maybe I would lean the other person for something like that. But I don't put too much stock into it because I know I just can't. I don't know how it's really going to play. But yeah, I think that's kind of all the questions for now. This was kind of just a brief test run. It was probably a little sloppy, but I'll get better as I go, and I'll be a little more prepared next time. I had no idea what the fuck I was doing, to be completely honest. But yeah, I'll do another live chat maybe, just so I can kind of get the hang of it after the fights on Saturday, so we can kind of go over this and see how it goes. But yeah, I think Angela Hill should win her fight, and I'm probably going to ride out Townsend, and I'm kind of looking into other ones, but I probably won't have much more action than that. The Jan card and Corey Anderson card is the card I'm really looking forward to, so that's going to be one that I have a ton of action. I already made a few bets, and I'll talk about them. But yeah, and Gugabe, my podcast partner, just showed up, but I'm leaving now, so he can fuck off. But All right, see you, boys. I'm going to roll, and I'll do another one of these soon, but I just kind of wanted to see how it worked. So thanks, guys. Bye.